now he has a very interesting, sort of portfolio where he heads legal operations and HR in ARCIL, and therefore I think he's the man to talk to us about some of the enforcement issues, because he lives it every day. Uh, and so I'm sort of privileged to have Mr. Gopal Krishna as a part of the panel. And I also have Shashank Kumar, who sort of is a part of a Parekh and Company, which is a sort of established and a law firm which has been around for many years. And Shashank, does what I call the real stuff in law by going to the courts and sorting out matters. So he sort of has going to get a lot of practical aspects to what it is. So here is what we wanted to do today. As I said, that we wanted to sort of cover fundamentally, and we of course had a fourth panelist, Mr. Ravindranath from Exim Bank, but I think he's not been able to make it today. So I had initially thought about having 4 topics, and the topics were to talk about regulatory environment in general, concerning banking and finance. And by banking, I also mean sort of non-banking in some sense. We talk a little bit about where there's a lot of focus now on consumer protection, which is something which, even if you're not a banker, it's sort of some things which may be interesting to talk about, as to trends and where it's going in terms of as a consumer for banking services. I also wanted to touch upon, and again, I don't know whether we will have the time because Kaviraj has said that I should try and shorten the session by a few minutes to do him a favor, and he'll give me an extra drink if I do that. So I'll try and keep to that. We thought we'd talk about a little bit of a corporate governance in banks, and the whole world about the new Companies Act vis-a-vis the banking regulations and the governances which the RBI is stipulating. Is there a sort of a conflict, or is there a sort of convergence in the laws there? And finally, I think we'll talk, particularly given the panel we have, and Shashank also brings in a lot of expertise, to talk about recovery, SARFACI, what are the practical issues we are facing, are there any recommendations which we should be making as a association to the government, as government sort of now becoming amenable to changes. So fundamentally, this is that's the format of what we want to cover. So sort of to start with, I work, and just by way of my own introduction, I am Nilanjan Sinha, and I am the General Counsel for GE Capital, and therefore GE Capital is a non-bank finance company in India, and even globally. In fact, we distinguish ourselves by saying that we are builders and not bankers. So therefore, we necessarily don't think bankers are good guys, but that's another matter. I think what I would, with your permission, Mr. Gopal Krishna, is that give a little bit of a perspective from the NBFC, regime as to where the regulation's going, and then we'll sort of get your thoughts in. Okay. So from the NBFC perspective, I think there's been a sea of change which is happening, and if any of y'all are even remotely sort of interested in the banking and finance, and on a nice Sunday, on a nice Wednesday, and we are sitting here listening to banking finance panel, I would think you have some interest in this. There's been a lot of change which is happening in the NBFC space. There is a fundamental convergence which RBI is trying to make between banks and NBFCs. It is basically, if we go back in history, the NBFCs were a non-regulated sort of entities in financial services. There was a scam which happened, which touched many lives in India. And pursuant to the scam, with the one broad brush, RBI brought in what is called Section 45 of the RBI regulation. And through that, every NBFC was brought in under the purview of being a licensed entity. So you could not do a financial activity unless you had a certificate of registration. So RBI is also some stage therefore realized that it had bitten more than it could chew, because it just, there were, I think the last count I had, there were about 25,000 NBFCs in the country.